Well, good evening, Little Masters, and welcome to episode 201 of the Prancing Pony podcast, where we have been sent back for a brief time until our task is done.
Fortunately, we were not sent back naked.
Oh, goodness, no. Oh,
I'm so very sorry for that image.
Not sorry enough, my friend.
I'm really not. You're right. Folks, go ahead and pull up a bench in the common room. I'm Shawn Marchese, the real-life Lord of the Mark, and I'm here with the man of the West, who wishes he was light as a swan's feather, Alan Sisto.
That would be nice, but I'm not sure that Gandalf's diet of, death by Balrog plus resurrection is exactly sustainable. Folks, today we are going to be talking about the third and last part of The White Rider. That's chapter 5 in book 3 of The Lord of the Rings. It's when we learn what Gandalf and the Balrog were really up to.
That makes it sound like they were doing something fun. Like,
yeah, maybe they were having a party down
really
there.
Up to? Like,
I mean, they were kind of in the basement, so
they were in the basement and they were tearing up the place, but I don't know. We'll get there.
Yeah.
Now, for those of you joining us for the first time, welcome. Here at the Prancing Pony podcast, we are working our way through J.R.R. Tolkien's Legendarium, a few pages at a time.
We study the details, we make connections to other writings, talk about our favorite themes.
And we have a lot of fun along the way, so we're glad you've joined us.
And we hope you'll be glad you joined as well.
Indeed. But before we get to these last few pages of the chapter today, it is time for a Tolkien Quote of the Day. Now, one of the things we're going to be talking about today is Gandalf's sacrifice when he fell in Khazad-dûm. And so tonight's quote of the day is about sacrifice. Alan, do you want to start us off?
I believe I will. We're going to start with one of the letters, number 246, to Eileen Elgar. Now, here Tolkien was answering a question about Frodo's failure, really, for lack of a better word, at Mount Doom. That was the word that she had used, and Tolkien was, he seemed partly impressed, partly taken back by the word, but he was right. And he says, "We are finite creatures with absolute limitations upon the powers of our soul-body structure in either action or endurance. Moral failure can only be asserted, I think, when a man's effort or endurance falls short of his limits, and the blame decreases as that limit is closer approached. Nonetheless, I think it can be observed in history and experience that some individuals seem to be placed in sacrificial positions, situations or tasks that for perfection of solution demand powers beyond their utmost limits, even beyond all possible limits for an incarnate creature in a physical world, in which a body may be destroyed or so maimed that it affects the mind and will." Now, again, Tolkien was talking about Frodo, but we want to talk about this idea he mentions of characters being placed in sacrificial positions by Tolkien in general, and then, of course, Gandalf in particular.
I think that sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I'm going to start off with Frodo. After all, that's who Tolkien was talking about in the letter, so it seems fitting. Now, for Frodo to have achieved that perfection of solution that Tolkien mentioned in the letter demanded powers beyond his utmost limits, which is why he failed, so to speak. But Tolkien's point here is that any person under those same circumstances would have failed. It's not a moral failure because Frodo didn't fall short of his limits. He actually did go to those very limits before being able to accomplish the task. He didn't quit before, give up, go home. That would have been a moral failure. He did the best he could. And in fact, he did better than just about anybody else could have in his place. And he only failed, and I'm making air quotes when I say that, because it was a solution that really no one could have achieved perfectly. Now, Frodo did ultimately do it anyway, despite great physical hardship, emotional trauma, and of course the regret of living with his own failure at the end. And I think that, in addition to everything else that he went through, was a tremendous sacrifice.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah.
And because of that sacrifice, even though he failed, air quotes,
Right.
Frodo was rewarded with an all-expenses paid trip to the Undying Lands, at least for a little while.
I hope they're not trying to sell him a timeshare, but...
I wouldn't mind a timeshare in Valinor, actually. I might actually buy that.
No, I wouldn't mind either. It's probably a little pricey. And it's hard to get
probably.
flights there, from what I understand.
Yep. Boats. Yeah. You can get boats.
Boats. There you go.
Not anymore, actually.
No, that's true. Well, I own a timeshare, but I can never get there.
Yeah.
All right. Well, there are other examples of sacrifice that demanded powers beyond the limits of an incarnate creature. That is, sacrifice that necessarily meant the destruction of the body. We could look at the recent death of Boromir in this light and see that while he did have a moral failure, when he attempted to take the ring from Frodo, his opportunity for redemption came when trying to save Merry and Pippin, a task that was certainly, as Tolkien put it, beyond all possible limits for an incarnate creature in a physical world, as evidenced by his not being alive anymore. But like Frodo, he was rewarded We just don't see what that reward was. But like Gandalf said last episode, Boromir escaped the peril, or as Aragorn put it, and I love this, Boromir conquered. Few have gained such a victory. Yeah.
That is a pretty awesome one.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I was also thinking about Glorfindel on this one.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
We don't get a whole lot of detail in the Of Tuor and the Fall of Gondolin chapter, just that Tuor and his company wouldn't have been saved except by the valor of yellow-haired Glorfindel, and that many are the songs that have been sung of the duel of Glorfindel with the Balrog upon a pinnacle of rock in that high place, and both fell to ruin in the abyss. Well, dying in the effort to kill a giant wingless monster is pretty much
That's
the definition of going beyond your utmost limits.
Clearly.
And in History of Middle-earth Volume 12, that's the volume called The Peoples of Middle-earth, there are 2 essays, both titled simply Glorfindel, where we read that after his purging of any guilt that he had incurred in the rebellion, remember he was one of the Noldor who had actually been part of the exile and the rebellion.
Right.
After that, he was released from Mandos, and Manwë restored him. He then became again a living incarnate person, but was permitted to dwell in the Blessed Realm, for he had regained the primitive innocence and grace of the Eldar. For long years he remained in Valinor, in reunion with the Eldar who had not rebelled, and in the companionship of the Maiar. To these he had now become almost an equal, for though he was an incarnate, his spiritual power had been greatly enhanced by his self-sacrifice. At some time, he became a follower and a friend of Gandalf, Olorin. So here we see another sacrifice and another reward. First of all, he gets an early release from Mandos, and then he ends up getting juiced up and becoming almost an equal with the Maiar, precisely because his power had been enhanced by that self-sacrifice.
That's right. Boy.
And that's quite on point for what we're going to talk about today.
I was going to say, that is really on the nose for what we're talking about tonight. Now, we did talk about Glorfindel back in episode 134 at the end of season 3. My goodness, that feels like it wasn't that long ago, but 134, we're at 201. Yeah. But if you want to go back and listen to that in full, we'd recommend that. And of course, we'll talk about Gandalf in a moment. But I have to talk about one of my other favorite sacrifices here. It didn't result in death, but in so many ways, well, that made it an even bigger sacrifice. I'm speaking here of Hurin in the Nernaeth Arnoediad, the Battle of Unnumbered Tears, which, well, for such a tragic historical event, has one of the most aesthetically pleasing names in all of the Legendarium, the Nernaeth Arnoediad. But that's beside the point.
It's always fun to say.
It is, isn't it? Heading to the battle now, Fingon, the High King of the Noldor, has been slain by Gothmog. The field has been lost. And then I'm going to read from the text. But still Hurin and Huor and the remnant of the house of Hador stood firm with Turgon of Gondolin, and the hosts of Morgoth could not yet win the passes of Sirion. Then Hurin spoke to Turgon, saying, "Go now, Lord, while time is, for you are the last of the house of Fingolfin, and in you lives the last hope of the Eldar. While Gondolin stands, Morgoth shall still know fear in his heart." He and Huor then hold the rear guard along with the men of Dor-Lomin, allowing Turgon to return safely and, more importantly, unobserved to Gondolin. And then, man, talk about sacrifice. Then all the hosts of Angband swarmed against them, and they bridged the stream with their dead and encircled the remnant of Hithlum as a gathering tide about a rock. There, as the sun westered and the shadows of the Ered Wethrin grew dark, Huor fell pierced with a venomed arrow in the eye, and all the valiant men of Hador were slain about him in a heap, and the orcs hewed their heads and piled them as a mound of gold in the sunset. Last of all, Hurin stood alone. Then he cast aside his shield, and seized the axe of an orc captain, and wielded it two-handed, and it is sung that the axe smoked in the black blood of the troll guard of Gothmog until it withered, and each time that he slew, Hurin cried aloud, "Aure and Tuluva, day shall come again." 70 times he uttered that cry, but they took him at last alive by the command of Morgoth, who thought thus to do him more evil than by death. Therefore the orcs grappled Hurin with their hands, which clung to him still, though he hewed off their arms, and ever their numbers were renewed till he fell buried beneath them. Then Gothmog bound him and dragged him to Angband with mockery. Of course, he would end up spending the next 28 years as a prisoner of Morgoth, forced to watch the disasters that would befall his children, Turin and Nienor. That is sacrifice, and he did that all so that Turgon could get back to Gondolin.
Yeah, he absolutely did. And that is a really good one, because even though he doesn't die, I mean, he loses everything, as we know in that story.
Everything. And even when he comes back, he finds Morwen only to lose her in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
Oh, he sacrifices a lot. And I think he knew he was going to be sacrificing a lot. If you read the conversation, let's put it that way, that he had with Morgoth after he'd been taken prisoner, which you can read in the Children of Húrin, he's very conscious of what he's going to endure.
Yeah.
And he's ready. And I'll be reading that actually for Tolkien Reading Day when we talk about hope and courage in the face of overwhelming odds. Yeah.
Yes, you will. Now, I almost don't want to follow that because I had one more that I wanted to talk about, but unfortunately the one I've got is not presented as dramatically as that one is, because of course it's Eärendil, and we know that Eärendil's story is like the least fleshed out of any of them.
Fair.
Which is frustrating. So I almost feel like I have to ask permission for it, because not only do we not get such a great dramatic moment like we get with
I grant thee permission, oh Shawn. Thank you for asking.
Thank you for allowing me to indulge myself. But okay, let's face it. It's been a while since I talked about Eärendil. Like
2 weeks?
3 weeks or something, yeah.
Good heavens.
And Eärendil doesn't make a sacrifice that involves powers beyond his utmost limits, and I'll admit it doesn't involve destruction of the body, but he does make a sacrifice, and I can't pass up a chance to give him a shout out here. Now, he didn't sacrifice himself entirely. He didn't die in his effort to reach the Undying Lands, thank goodness, because then he wouldn't have reached them. He could have, very well, and he willingly made the journey and took it upon himself to set foot there.
Yeah.
He sacrificed Middle-earth, too. I mean, remember, he loved Middle-earth, and he had children, very young children, and by completing his quest, he sacrificed his right to ever see his children or anyone else in Middle-earth ever again.
Or even set foot on the planet, right.
Or even set foot on the planet again. And this is where it breaks my heart that we don't have a dramatic version of this story.
Oh, because it would be, wouldn't it?
It would. I mean, just think about him having to, leave behind his kids and leave behind this place that he loves so much that he's willing to risk his life to sail into the West and save it. And we don't ever get that moment, which is kind of sad.
No.
Now, Bilbo gives us a version of it in song when he says, "And over Middle-earth he passed, and heard at last the weeping sore of women and of elven maids in elder days in years of yore. But on him mighty doom was laid, till moon should fade and orbit star, to pass and tarry nevermore on hither shores where mortals are." And that's really like all we get. I mean, that's the only thing that really tells us that like he really wanted to return to Middle-earth.
Yeah.
He never gets a chance to do it. So it's a sacrifice of a different kind. Again, it's not a sacrifice of all he had, certainly.
Well, in a way it is. It's a different kind of sacrifice, just like, with Húrin sacrificing everything, but again, not his life. Yeah, it's different.
Maybe so. And I think he's definitely rewarded for his sacrifice. He certainly ends up having his power enhanced and...
just ask that big black dragon he slew, yeah.
Exactly. And he wasn't buried under an avalanche of rock like some people who set foot on the soil. So
that's a good point.
That worked out for him.
That did.
But yeah, I mean, again, you all know I love the story of Eärendil, and it is that sacrifice that I think about just having, you very much like Frodo, in fact, where you risk your life for this place you love.
But you can never be a part of it again. Man, that is a huge sacrifice. Let's not forget that.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to go ahead and get back to Gandalf here, who did sacrifice all he had, as we'll be discussing later. Now, we'll be reading from Tolkien's letters later on that for Gandalf, it was a sacrifice to perish on the bridge in defense of his companions, less perhaps than for a mortal man or hobbit, since he had a far greater inner power than they, but also more since it was a humbling and abnegation of himself in conformity to the rules. For all he could know at that moment, he was the only person who could direct the resistance to Sauron successfully, and all his mission was vain. So, like Frodo, like Boromir, like Glorfindel, even like Eärendil before him, Gandalf is rewarded for that sacrifice. He's sent back to Middle-earth by Ilúvatar himself, with both more power and more authority than he had before. Like Glorfindel, like his spiritual power had been greatly enhanced by his self-sacrifice.
Yep. And it is quite an enhancement, as we're going to see.
Oh, yes, it is, no doubt.
This is not like a 1.3, 1.4 Gandalf.
No.
There's a reason we call him Gandalf 2.0.
Yeah, it is a huge revision, no doubt.
Yep. Well, that was awesome. And before we get into the chapter discussion, we have a correction to make.
Addendum.
From a recent episode. Yeah.
Clarification.
This is a correction. Come on,
Yeah,
we can
you're
admit
right,
this is a correction. In episode 196, when we were at Durndingle with the Ents, we
Mhm.
were talking about Merry's geography lesson that he gives to Pippin about Isengard.
Yeah.
And we acknowledge that Merry gives a mostly accurate description of the place.
Yeah. But in regards to Mary's characterization of it as having, quote, a flat space inside and an island or pillar of rock in the middle called Orthanc, Saruman has a tower on it. I thought that didn't make a lot of sense. It sounded like he was saying there was an island or pillar of rock called Orthanc, but then there was the tower, also called Orthanc, on top of that.
Right. You said that. And then I thought, well, maybe Merry was just misremembering things.
Right.
You know,
Because
I
he
mean,
does.
he does. I mean, he's more learned than Pippin. We know that. But we
Low
could
bar.
forgive him if he had a fuzzy memory about things that he heard about or read about once back in Rivendell several months ago.
Yeah. But as it turns out, Mary wasn't misremembering things. We were. If you
Oops.
look at some of Tolkien's own illustrations of Orthanc, look at figures 77 and 78 in The Art of the Lord of the Rings, edited by Hammond and Skull, you can see that Orthanc is very much standing on top of, well, kind of an island of rock.
Yeah, it's an island of rock for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a pillar of rock, to be clear.
No.
I think it would be not only strange, but also probably pretty unstable to have a tower atop a pillar of rock. But
That would be a little odd. I mean, if you're talking about a cylindrical pillar. Yeah.
right. But it is definitely an island of rock, at least in the
Yeah.
illustrations we're talking about here.
Pretty clearly.
Now, to be fair, there are some other illustrations which don't feature it, but yeah, it's definitely there in a couple of pictures.
It is. And there is enough evidence, as you said, of Mary's description being accurate that, well, we're willing to admit fault on this one.
Sorry, Mary. We should never have doubted you. But at least we weren't as harsh with you as Gandalf is with Pippin every day.
Fair enough. Yeah.
And speaking of Gandalf, why don't we go ahead and get back into the text and catch up with Gandalf and the Three Hunters now.
All right.
And I'm starting today, aren't I? I've got the first reading.
Yes, you are, sir.
All right. The others looked at him. A gleam of sun through fleeting clouds fell on his hands, which lay now upturned on his lap. They seemed to be filled with light as a cup is with water. At last he looked up and gazed straight at the sun. "The morning is wearing away," he said. "Soon we must go." "Do we go to find our friends and to see Treebeard?" asked Aragorn. "No," said Gandalf. "That is not the road that you must take. I have spoken words of hope, but only of hope. Hope is not victory. War is upon us and all our friends, a war in which only the use of the ring could give us surety of victory. It fills me with great sorrow and great fear, for much shall be destroyed, and all may be lost. I am Gandalf, Gandalf the White, but black is mightier still." He rose and gazed out eastward, shading his eyes, as if he saw things far away that none of them could see. Then he shook his head. "No," he said in a soft voice, "it has gone beyond our reach. Of that, at least, let us be glad. We can no longer be tempted to use the ring. We must go down to face a peril near despair, yet that deadly peril is removed." He turned. "Come, Aragorn, son of Arathorn," he said. "Do not regret your choice in the valley of the Aemon Muil, nor call it a vain pursuit. You chose amid doubts the path that seemed right. The choice was just, and it has been rewarded. For so we have met in time, who otherwise might have met too late. But the quest of your companions is over. Your next journey is marked by your given word. You must go to Edoras and seek out Theoden in his hall, for you are needed. The light of Anduril must now be uncovered in the battle for which it has so long waited. There is war in Rohan, and worse evil. It goes ill with Theoden."
Oh, it goes very ill indeed.
Quite.
Yeah. Well, let's start at the beginning of that passage. I think there's a description here that I find really beautiful, but also easy to miss. This idea of his hands and the sunlight falling on his hands, they seem to be filled with light as a cup is with water.
That is really cool.
Isn't it?
Especially when there's so many times when we see light compared to liquid
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
Legendarium. This is another place where it's very figuratively so, but
Well, right. Unlike the vats of Varda. Right.
right, exactly, which were pretty literal. But yeah, that's definitely reminiscent of that and is really
It's a
cool.
stunning image, really.
It is, yeah. And then he gazes straight at the sun. That's interesting.
Maybe Gandalf 2.0 has like seriously powerful retinas that can
Maybe so.
endure.
Do not try this at home, kids. Yeah.
Right. He gazed straight at the sun and said, "Well, ow, I shouldn't have done that."
Well, now I can't see.
You'll have to guide me now. Oh, goodness. But then, of course, he says it's time to go. We got to get moving here.
Yeah, and Aragorn hopefully is like, hey,
Yeah.
we're going to find our friends.
That's right, Merry and Pippin. I mean, you know where they are, right?
Absolutely. We know where they are. We're going to go. And Gandalf says, nope, we're not going to do that.
No.
We've got something else that we need to do. And
Yeah.
I love this. We're going to talk about this in just a moment. But, Gandalf says, look, I've talked about hope, but it's just hope. Hope is not the same as victory.
Yeah.
And yes, I am Gandalf the White, and I've got all this power, but black is mightier still.
Ooh.
That is a dark thing to say.
It's a Beowulfian moment, isn't it?
It is a Beowulfian moment, yeah. And yet you can see why he says that, because Sauron has all, and not just Sauron, but also Saruman, they've got all these forces. They've got all this ability to influence people and persuade people and coerce people. They have slaves, and they have armies and armies of orcs and trolls and wicked men. Black is mighty. The odds are not in their favor.
No. And all they have is hope. Don't count that as a victory. Just because I'm back doesn't mean we win.
Right.
Yeah. The ring now, that could guarantee victory. But thankfully, it's gone. We ought to be glad for that. Because even though we're seriously in danger right now, at least it's not that peril. That peril I don't want to face.
No, we must go and face the peril. Can I just have a little bit of peril?
Just a little bit. I love this. We must go down to face a peril near despair. Oh, you take despair down about a mile, then you turn left on despair.
It's right there, right at the end of Despair Road. It's right there.
As far away from Hope Highway as you can get.
That's right. This is Despair Heights.
That's right.
This is the greater Despair metropolitan area.
That's right. I love it.
Now then Gandalf does something that's really cool. He actually validates Aragorn's choice.
Yes, I love this.
We've talked about this before, where Aragorn has really been doubting himself for a few chapters now. And he has questioned his choice to go after Merry and Pippin, especially now that it doesn't seem like they're going to be going after them anymore.
Right.
But Gandalf says, you know what? No, don't worry about it. It was a just choice. And it's been rewarded because we've been reunited. Yep. And we wouldn't have been reunited otherwise.
You never would have come here without chasing them. Right.
Right. This is very, very wise. I mean, Gandalf was always wise. Okay, yes, he's a wizard. But this to me speaks to an insight about the various might have beens. Before he was very wise, but he was very finite. I feel like when he comes back as Gandalf 2.0, he's kind of got the high level view of the whole chessboard more than he had before.
Well, it was that line he talked about before, how he can see things very far away, but things close up are a little hard to see now.
Yeah.
And I think it's like you mentioned, this idea of a 30,000 foot view. He can get the big picture, the tapestry overview. Yeah.
Yeah. And he can see what's going to happen if certain events take place. He can see downstream effects, and the image of him playing chess against Sauron is very vivid to me.
Yeah, it really is.
And I think this is really cool.
Absolutely. But he does tell them, your quest for Merry and Pippin, that's over now. They're safe, but now you've got to do what you said you were going to do, what you told Éomer. You've got to go to Edoras and King Theoden.
Yeah. War is there. War is coming, and they need your help. You know that fancy sword that was reforged? The one that cut the ring from Sauron's finger? Yeah, that's got to go to war now.
Yeah, it can't just stay in its sheath. You've got to go and do something with it. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's where he's going to send Aragorn for the next phase of his journey.
That's right. But he's not just going to send them. He says he's going to go with them as well, and I'm going to pick up shortly after that. Gandalf in the middle of the paragraph, of course, because that's what I do. Will you come now with me? Yes, we will set out together, said Aragorn, but I do not doubt that you will come there before me if you wish. He rose and looked long at Gandalf. The others gazed at them in silence as they stood there facing one another. The gray figure of the man, Aragorn, son of Arathorn, was tall and stern as stone, his hand upon the hilt of his sword. He looked as if some king out of the mists of the sea had stepped upon the shores of lesser men. Before him stooped the old figure, white, shining now as if with some light kindled within, bent, laden with years, but holding a power beyond the strength of kings. Do I not say truly, Gandalf, said Aragorn at last, that you could go whithersoever you wished quicker than I? And this I also say, you are our captain and our banner. The Dark Lord has 9, but we have one mightier than they, the White Rider. He has passed through the fire and the abyss, and they shall fear him. We will go where he leads.
Yeah, you will.
Ooh, yeah.
Of course you will.
Man. Oh, that's great.
And you're absolutely right. I said before you're reading, he's going to send him in that direction. And although, of course, I know what's actually going to happen, I use the wrong word there. Yeah, he's taking them with him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, coming with.
So it's like,
that's right.
we're going to go to war, and I'm coming with you
Mm-hmm.
to Edoras.
I'm sorry,
I'm coming with you.
But I'm coming with you.
Yeah, exactly.
Of course you are, but I'm coming with you.
Yep.
Aragorn, of course, points out, look, that's going to be a long walk, and Gandalf, sort of almost with a wink and a nod, we'll see about that.
At which point, Aragorn is thinking, wait, can he fly now? Because, dude, that would be awesome.
That would be awesome. Or teleport.
Yeah, exactly. That would be just absolutely amazing. Well, he's not quite that powerful yet.
No,
but
that'd be pretty awesome.
Speaking of how powerful he is, what about this moment between Gandalf and Aragorn, where we see Aragorn kingly as kingly? I mean, this tall gray figure, like a king upon the shores of lesser men.
Mm-hmm.
But then look at Gandalf. He's this old white figure, shining, bent, and laden.
And there's that light again, the light kindled within, which I love.
Yeah. It's almost like seemingly weak on the outside, but inside he's got that light and holding a power beyond the strength of kings. So it's like Aragorn is a king. Aragorn is stepping into his own as this Númenorian prince. And Gandalf is more powerful still. I mean, this is a powerful moment.
Power beyond the strength of kings.
Exactly.
Which is a direct comparison because Aragorn looks as if some king out of the mists had stepped on the shores of lesser men. Right.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and Gandalf is more powerful still. Yeah.
Yeah, much more powerful. And Aragorn recognizes that, of course. He recognized that even before he was 2.0. But he acknowledges, look, you are our captain. You are our banner. And I love this line, right? Sauron has 9, but we have one mightier than they. Ooh.
That's pretty cool.
Oh, I love that. That's a goosebump moment, isn't it?
That is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because at first you're like, well, he's got 9, but we've got 1. And you're thinking, wait a minute. No, those numbers don't.
9 to 1 is not good odds. No.
No. But the one we've got is the White Rider.
That's right.
Pass through fire and the abyss, and they shall fear him. Oh.
Yeah.
That's superb stuff.
It really, really is. And then I'm going to have you pick up exactly at that point.
All right. Yes, together we will follow you, said Legolas. But first it would ease my heart, Gandalf, to hear what befell you in Moria. Will you not tell us? Can you not stay even to tell your friends how you were delivered? I have stayed already too long, answered Gandalf. Time is short, but if there were a year to spend, I would not tell you all. Then tell us what you will, and time allows, said Gimli. Come, Gandalf, tell us how you fared with the Balrog. Name him not, said Gandalf. And for a moment it seemed that a cloud of pain passed over his face, and he sat silent, looking old as death. Long time I fell, he said at last, slowly, as if thinking back with difficulty. Long I fell, and he fell with me. His fire was about me. I was burned. Then we plunged into the deep water, and all was dark. Cold it was as the tide of death. Almost it froze my heart. Deep is the abyss that is spanned by Durin's bridge, and none has measured it, said Gimli. Yet it has a bottom, beyond light and knowledge, said Gandalf. Thither I came at last, to the uttermost foundations of stone. He was with me still. His fire was quenched, but now he was a thing of slime, stronger than a strangling snake. We fought far under the living earth, where time is not counted. Ever he clutched me, and ever I hewed him, till at last he fled into dark tunnels. They were not made by Durin's folk, Gimli, son of Glóin. Far, far below the deepest delvings of the dwarves, the world is gnawed by nameless things. Even Sauron knows them not. They are older than he. Now I have walked there, but I will bring no report to darken the light of day. In that despair my enemy was my only hope, and I pursued him, clutching at his heel. Thus he brought me back at last to the secret ways of Khazad-dûm. Too well he knew them all. Ever up now we went, until we came to the endless stair.
Ah, the endless stair. You kind of wish there was an elevator to make things a little easier.
It would be nice, but, the dwarves didn't build it. I guess nameless things don't build elevators.
That's a good point. The dwarves might have.
Yeah, the dwarves probably would have.
But not these nameless things.
The dwarves would have had, like, elevators and a big liquid gold dwarf and, like, this big industrial thing.
Liquid gold dwarf! No, you did not mention that.
Oh, yes, I did. I did.
Oh, man. All right. Well, going back to the beginning of the passage, Legolas asks the obvious question, tell us how you survived. And Gandalf tries to move on, right? I mean, he's like, yeah, I'm not really going to go there. But Gimli presses and mentions the Balrog. I wouldn't have done that.
I don't know if that was in very good taste. I mean,
no.
Gandalf doesn't even want to hear the name.
No.
But I think he knows. I mean, he has to tell. He knows that his friends are asking. They want to know.
He's not going to get away with not answering.
No, and I don't think he really doesn't want to tell them.
He's going to tell. He's going to tell.
Oh, wonderfully done.
I can see Aragorn, Gimli, and Legolas doing that now.
He's going to tell. Oh my gosh. I was saved at the last moment. But he does know that he has to tell them something. And so he tells them.
Yeah.
Not everything, but he tells them what he tells them.
Enough, right? He talks about the long fall, surrounded by the fire of the Balrog that's burning him, and then plunging into that deep, dark water. So cold. So cold.
There's a lot of just the power of that sensory description is really...
Isn't it?
Powerful?
Yeah.
That wasn't exactly eloquent, but you know what I mean.
Wow. Can somebody buy Shawn a thesaurus, please?
That power is so
powerful.
But, he just, surrounded by the fire of the Balrog and then suddenly plunged into this cold. You feel that.
Yeah, that's true.
And then they're down in the uttermost foundations of stone.
Oh, what a phrase.
Oh, that is a great phrase. I love so much of this description. But the Balrog is still there, and with his flames quenched, he's now a slimy creature, like a snake.
Yeah.
Not like a bat.
No, not like a bat.
Not like a bat.
He was a thing of slime, stronger than a strangling snake. There you get again another reason why you've got to read this out loud, folks.
Yeah, you're right.
Makes a difference, yeah.
You're absolutely right. But this is interesting. The Balrog is fleeing from Gandalf, isn't it?
Yeah, I've had enough, especially now that I'm not on fire anymore. I just don't want to necessarily deal with this guy, right?
And is my hair out?
So then we get the mention of the deep tunnels and this amazing phrase, this idea of the nameless things, the world being gnawed by these things that even Sauron doesn't know.
I love this. It's creepy.
It is creepy. Yeah.
Yeah. And in fact, some readers, and I would include myself in this, have actually found this mention of nameless things to be kind of Lovecraftian almost. I mean, more Lovecraftian than I think anything else in Tolkien.
Yeah.
Now, I did some digging into this just to see, did Tolkien know anything about Lovecraft? I mean, I know that Lovecraft wrote a little bit before Tolkien did. Did some research. I went down a fascinating rabbit hole, but I didn't find any actual evidence that Tolkien read Lovecraft except for very late in his life, around 1964, which would have been after he wrote this anyway. But I did want to share it just because it's a really interesting story. In 1964, Tolkien wrote a review of an anthology called Swords and Sorcery that was sent to him by the American writer Sprague de Camp. Now, he wasn't very fond of the anthology. He wrote a letter to Sprague de Camp, which was published in Mythlore. It's actually referred to in Hammond and Skull's Chronology, if you've got that book, so look it up under 1964. But he had some very harsh words for a story by Lord Dunsany printed in the book. And he actually wrote this long, brutal critique of the Dunsany story on stationery from the Hotel Miramar in Bournemouth. Remember that one?
Yeah.
I'll actually share some links to some pictures of Tolkien's critique written on the stationery. I found it through Tolkien Collector's Guide, so shout out to the guys there. But
yeah,
it was actually posted on TolkienLibrary.com, which you can link through Tolkien Collector's Guide, but I'll post links to both of them. Anyway, I digress. Getting back to the point, there was a story by Lovecraft in that collection that was called The Doom That Came to Sarnath. So Tolkien probably read it because it seems like he read pretty much everything in the collection. But again, that was long after he wrote this passage.
Oh, well after.
Yeah. So there's no reason to believe that he had been influenced by Lovecraft here, but still, it is a very Lovecraftian phrase, and it's incredibly creepy.
It really is. But what do you make of this older than he, since Sauron is a Maya?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
That
I
is a
know.
tough one. I mean, it's
First thing that comes to my mind, honestly, is what we talked about. Was it, I don't know, last week or the week before in a P5 when we quoted Christopher Tolkien as saying that his father was prone to, how did he put it now? I can't
oh
remember.
gosh, rhetorical
Rhetorical
superlatives or
superlatives.
something. Yeah, yeah,
Like oldest living thing, talking about
right,
Treebeard,
right.
right? Oh, man.
That could be what's going on here. I tried to like reason it out by like, oh, maybe it was before Sauron was Sauron. It was when he was still a good Maya, but there's really no proof of
Maybe.
that. I'm digging too deep for that. I think it's just, like you said, a rhetorical superlative.
Yeah. They're older than he in this part of the world.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
they were here when he was still a lieutenant in Beleriand.
It could be that, but I do think it's one of those rhetorical
I think so,
comparatives.
too.
Let's call it a rhetorical comparative.
Rhetorical comparative. I like that. Well, it's another moment when Hammond and Skull point out that nothing should exist in Middle-earth that is older than he. And they conclude the same thing, by the way. So we're on solid ground.
It works for me.
They think the phrase is also rhetorical. Yeah.
I like it. So getting back into the text here, we get this really, really interesting reference by Gandalf to his despair.
Yes.
He says he was in this despair, and he says, my enemy was my only hope. I think what he means here is that you probably can't see much of anything, don't have any sense of direction.
No.
So it's not like you're going to like try and find your way out. It's like, I'm down here. All I have to do right now, like my only task is dealing with this creature. And I think that's what he means by that. It's like his only motivation, the only thing keeping him going was following the Balrog. And he did. He followed him all the way to the Endless Stair.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, getting to the next part of the text, which I didn't read, Gimli says the Endless Stair had long been lost. He thought that maybe it was just a legend. Maybe it never really existed at all. Gandalf's like, no, it's real.
No. Yeah.
it's real and it's still there.
Took me several days to climb the darn thing.
Right, exactly. From the bottom to the very top in a spiral, all the way to the top of Silvertine or Zirac Zigil.
And now Gandalf is looking trim, fit, and ready to run a marathon. The guy has got to just have, he's got legs.
Oh,
he knows how to. Sorry.
He's been on the Endless Stairmaster.
The Endless Stairmaster. Oh, yes. That is brilliant, Shawn. I love it.
Thank you. We need to sell that in our store.
The Endless Stairmaster. We should make.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we might have our next graphic for a t-shirt.
I want to sell the actual machine, man. Come on.
An old man with a hat and a beard. So he kind of looks like Gandalf, but not so much that we could get sued for infringement. On a Stairmaster with a Balrog high above him. I don't know, but I love the idea. The Endless Stairmaster. That's great. That is great.
We need to make it.
We do. I know. Oh, poor Megan. No pressure. Find a great design based on that, right?
Yep.
Well, we wanted to remind you about a couple of new things on our website. First up, our inaugural PPP Moot is coming. It is going to run from May 14th to 16th, and you are going to want to visit our website, theprancingponypodcast.com, for more information and to register.
We are so excited about this, and we can't wait for all of you guys to join us. One of our keynote speakers is going to be Dr. Amy Sturgis. Now, she's taught courses on everything from Tolkien and Harry Potter to Star Wars and Star Trek, and she's honestly just a fantastic speaker.
She really is, yeah.
Yeah, we saw her at last year's Myth Moot, and we're really looking forward to having her join us.
We really are. And our other keynote speaker is a previous guest here on the Prancing Pony podcast, Dr. Michael Drought, who joined us all the way back in episode 66. He edited the J.R.R. Tolkien Encyclopedia. He's a co-editor for Tolkien Studies. He's been involved with Lord of the Rings Online. And we kind of indirectly reference him all the time when it comes to the epistemic regime and Aeld Ente work. We are thrilled to have him join us as well.
Absolutely. Now, the theme for this first ever PPP Moot is digital recovery, the many ways we find fairy online and regain a clear view from virtual communities and online fandom. We have got a full slate of presentations for you.
Oh, we do. What, about a dozen, maybe 14 papers?
Something like that, plus some other things.
Discussions.
Oh. We've got some other special guests lined up, and we've got a lot of fun social events as well, including a pub quiz and a live AMA-style episode recording. So please plan on joining us.
That is right. We are going to be recording an episode live while we're there. Going to be a lot of fun. Now, by the time you hear this, our event page should be up and running, so you can take a look at the schedule, check out our keynote speakers, and most importantly, register to attend the 3-day event. Now, we have worked really hard to make our moot as accessible to as many people as possible, both in terms of time zones and cost. It's only $25 for the whole thing if you sign up by March 31st. Now, the price is going to go up to $35 starting on April 1st, so get that early bird discount by going to theprancingponypodcast.com and signing up today.
Please do. And of course, our website still has all the rest of the good stuff there as well. Show notes and outtakes and Prancing Pony Ponderings, as well as our online storefront where you can get PPP shirts, mugs, stickers, and more.
Now, one of the best resources we have is our all-new library. Our web guru, Phil Dean, has worked hard on redesigning the library, and it shows. Now, as you know, we love the books here at the Prancing Pony Podcast, and we want to make sure you can get your hands on any of the books that we mention here.
Yeah, we may talk about a lot of Tolkien-related stuff on the podcast, but at heart, Alan and I are fans of Tolkien's books and books about Tolkien.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we have the library page, with links to every book we've mentioned on the show.
Now, we do make a few pennies from the purchases you make from those links, so thank you for your support.
And you don't want to be sent back naked without good socks, especially on a mountaintop. Well, fortunately, Bombas makes the most comfortable socks in the history of feet.
They have addressed all the little details to make their socks, honestly, way more comfy than anything else I've ever worn.
Oh, I wear them every day. I've actually got the merino wool socks in crew and ankle and no-show. I've got
oh my goodness,
all the different heights just because Texas weather, you never know what it's going to throw at you. So you have to be prepared for anything. And they are the perfect balance between breathable and cozy.
They really are. For me, it started with their running socks, but now I wear their no-shows, their specialized cycling socks, and of course, those comfy merino wool crew socks. Far and away best socks I've ever owned.
They really are. But the reason we're proud to support Bombas socks isn't just because they're cozy. It's because they give back to the most vulnerable members of our community.
That's right. For every pair of socks you buy, Bombas donates a pair to somebody in need. Customers like you have allowed them to donate over 40 million pairs of socks through a huge network of giving partners.
And right now, that impact is more powerful than ever. For those experiencing homelessness, these socks not only keep their feet warm, but they also give them the dignity of putting on clean clothes.
So give a pair when you buy a pair and get 20% off your first purchase at bombas.com/PPP.
That's BOMBAS.com/PPP. For 20% off your first purchase, bombas.com/PPP.
All right, well, welcome back, and we're going to go ahead and get back into the text, but we're going to skip a little bit because, well, we have to. The law requires it.
You have to skip something.
Yeah, so Gandalf is talking a little bit more about the fight, and I'm going to pick up mid-paragraph. A great smoke rose about us, vapor and steam. Ice fell like rain. I threw down my enemy, and he fell from the high place and broke the mountainside, where he smote it in his ruin. Then darkness took me, and I strayed out of thought and time, and I wandered far on roads that I will not tell. Naked I was sent back for a brief time until my task is done, and naked I lay upon the mountain top. The tower behind was crumbled into dust, the window gone. The ruined stair was choked with burned and broken stone. I was alone, forgotten, without escape upon the hard horn of the world. There I lay staring upward, while the stars wheeled over, and each day was as long as a life age of the earth. Faint to my ears came the gathered rumor of all lands, the springing and the dying, the song and the weeping, and the slow, everlasting groan of overburdened stone. And so at last, Gwaihir the Windlord found me again, and he took me up and bore me away. Ever I am fated to be your burden, friend at need, I said. A burden you have been, he answered, but not so now. Light as a swan's feather in my claw you are. The sun shines through you. Indeed, I do not think you need me any more. Were I to let you fall, you would float upon the wind. Do not let me fall, I gasped, for I felt life in me again. Bear me to Lothlorien. That indeed is the command of the Lady Galadriel, who sent me to look for you, he answered. Well, goodness. Wow. Yeah.
All right, so let's go back to the beginning of that passage. Actually, before the beginning of that passage, because there was some stuff that we skipped over about the fight on top of the mountains.
Really, this is a narrow space. It's near the very top. It's above the clouds. We're talking really high, probably 15 to 20,000 feet. So not a lot of oxygen up there either, for that matter. Super bright sun. And those of you who've been at the very top of a mountain know exactly what he's talking about. It feels like there's nothing between you and the sun. It is this big flaming ball that is just burning you the entire time. Yeah.
Well, yeah. And we know that the Silvertine or Celebdil was one of the 3 tallest peaks of the mountains, right? So they would have been towering above all the other mountains of the range. Not the tallest. The tallest was actually Caradhras.
That's what I was about to say, with the exception of Caradhras, right?
Yeah. Hat tip to Chad for pointing that out to me in the chat. But there's these 3 peaks, and this is one of the tallest ones. And so, they really are high up, and
very high.
What you say about sort of feeling like the sun is like right there next to you, burning you up.
Really does.
Pretty spot on. Speaking of things burning up, the Balrog bursts into new flame atop the mountain.
Yeah.
And Gandalf explains that anyone watching would have seen a storm, thunder and lightning, tongues of fire, smoke, vapor and steam. There's ice falling like rain.
It's like a really good rock concert.
Totally.
Thunder and lightning, smoke, vapor, steam. It's really pretty awesome.
And not an 18-inch tall Stonehenge.
No. The Balrog, of course, is thrown down, though, and then that lovely line, broke the mountainside where he smote it in his ruin.
Yes.
Which, by the way, I'm going to throw something out there that I just thought of. Broke the mountainside does not mean that the entire mountain came tumbling down.
Are you you're still on about Encalagon?
I'm going back to the idea of Thangorodrim and this notion that Encalagon was some planet-sized dragon, which he was not.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, he broke the mountain. It doesn't mean the entire freaking mountain came down on top of him, people. But anyway, I digress.
I can't wait to get back to that when we revisit the Silmarillion in, 7 years or whatever.
Something like that.
Because I think we might have underestimated the size of Thangorodrim when we had that conversation.
We might have.
But still, everybody out there talking about Encalagon is seriously overestimating how big.
They're really overestimating the size of this thing that would have its own freaking gravity.
Because Thangorodrim could still be huge mountains and be broken.
Oh,
but, he's not pulverizing the mountain.
No, he's not turning it into dust. This isn't an episode of Will It Blend? No.
Nope.
All right.
Now, as for the actual rebirth of Gandalf, that's not really mentioned in much detail, is it? We've just got that line about naked was I sent back. That was it.
That's it, man. Right. Sent back? Back from where? By whom?
Exactly. Well, we're going to tell you.
That's right. He's going to tell. We're going to tell. So, of course, to tell you that, it means we need to do a sidebar and look really in depth at a letter that Tolkien wrote that sheds a lot of light on Gandalf's return. Now, this is necessarily going to involve some lengthy passages from letter number 156 to Robert Murray. So pull that up, you have it, and let's dive in.
Let's do it.
We're going to start out by Tolkien acknowledging, I think the way in which Gandalf's return is presented is a defect. And one other critic, as much under the spell as yourself, curiously used the same expression, cheating. That is partly due to the ever-present compulsions of narrative technique. He must return at that point, and such explanations of his survival, as are explicitly set out, must be given there. But the narrative is urgent and must not be held up for elaborate discussions involving the whole mythological setting.
Right. Now, he also points out that he might have made things clearer, but he really didn't want to. He said, I have purposely kept all allusions to the highest matters down to mere hints, perceptible only by the most attentive, or kept them under unexplained symbolic forms. So God and the angelic gods, little g the second time, the lords or powers of the West, only peep through in such places as Gandalf's conversation with Frodo. Behind that there was something else at work, beyond any design of the ringmakers, or in Faramir's Númenórean grace at dinner.
Ah, yeah. So, yes, Tolkien says Gandalf really died and was changed, for that seems to me the only real cheating, to represent anything that can be called death as making no difference. I am Gandalf the White who has returned from death. I might say much more, but it would only be in, perhaps tedious, elucidation of the mythological ideas in my mind. It would not, I fear, get rid of the fact that the return of Gandalf is, as presented in this book, a defect, and one I was aware of, and probably did not work hard enough to mend. But Gandalf is not, of course, a human being, man or hobbit. There are naturally no precise modern terms to say what he was. I would venture to say that he was an incarnate angel.
He would certainly venture to say that, and that's pretty much
the
best way to think of it in modern terms. Now, Tolkien goes on to talk about some things that we've discussed on the show several times. The fact that the Astari had physical bodies that could feel pain and fatigue and hunger and so forth. The fact that they could be killed, and that the reason for all these limitations was precisely to limit and hinder their exhibition of power on the physical plane, and so that they should do what they were primarily sent for: train, advise, instruct, arouse the hearts and minds of those threatened by Sauron to a resistance with their own strengths.
Right. But then we get to something really important to this point. These angels could fail, and by degrees. Anything from, quote, the absolute satanic rebellion and evil of Morgoth and his satellite Sauron, end quote, to the mere idleness of some of the other powers. Tolkien goes on to point out that the wizards were not exempt. Indeed, being incarnate, were more likely to stray or err. Gandalf alone fully passes the tests, on a moral plane anyway. He makes mistakes of judgment. For in his condition, it was for him a sacrifice to perish on the bridge in defense of his companions, less perhaps than for a mortal man or hobbit, since he had a far greater inner power than they, but also more, since it was a humbling and abnegation of himself in conformity to the rules. I know we read this earlier, but it's worth finishing. For all he could know at that moment, he was the only person who could direct the resistance to Sauron successfully, and all his mission was vain. He was handing over to the authority that ordained the rules and giving up personal hope of success.
That is awesome. And
isn't it?
It is precisely what the authority, and that is authority with a capital A, or Iluvatar, for those keeping score at home. That's exactly what Iluvatar wanted. Tolkien says the wizards as such had failed. Or, if you like, the crisis had become too grave and needed an enhancement of power. So Gandalf sacrificed himself, was accepted, and enhanced, and returned. Yes, that was the name. I was Gandalf. Of course, he remains similar in personality and idiosyncrasy, but both his wisdom and power are much greater. When he speaks, he commands attention. The old Gandalf could not have dealt so with Theoden nor with Saruman. He is still under the obligation of concealing his power and of teaching rather than forcing or dominating wills. But where the physical powers of the enemy are too great for the goodwill of the opposers to be effective, he can act in emergency as an angel, no more violently than the release of St. Peter from prison.
I like that comparison because, well, it was a powerful enough earthquake to knock the walls down, but, it wasn't a big old act of violence.
Okay, I'm glad you could elucidate that reference for me because I didn't know that one.
I remember correctly, the doors opened as a result of the earthquake, and, they were able to get out, but...
Got it. Okay.
I don't remember anybody dying or, the guards like laying on the ground, pierced by all sorts of... No, it was perfectly fine.
Got it.
So he talks about a few of those moments and then adds, in the end, before he departs forever, he sums himself up, I was the enemy of Sauron. He might have added, for that purpose I was sent to Middle-earth. But by that he would at the end have meant more than at the beginning. He was sent by a mere prudent plan of the angelic Valar, or governors, but authority had taken up this plan and enlarged it at the moment of its failure. Naked I was sent back for a brief time until my task is done. Sent back by whom and whence? As an aside, didn't we ask those exact questions?
Yes,
right?
we did.
I mean, that's totally makes sense. That's the immediate thing you think of.
Yeah.
Back to Tolkien's letter then. Not by the gods, whose business is only with this embodied world and its time, for he passed out of thought and time. Naked is, alas, unclear. It was meant, just literally, unclothed like a child, not discarnate, and so ready to receive the white robes of the highest. Galadriel's power is not divine, and his healing in Lorien is meant to be no more than physical healing and refreshment.
Now, I know we're running long already, Alan, but I feel like we need to break that down a little bit just because I think that's really, really important.
I think
that
we
description.
do. Yeah.
This idea that the Valar, that's the little g gods he's talking about in the letter.
Right.
The Valar's business is only with the embodied world and
That's
its
right.
time. We know that. We know that they came into Arda as Iluvatar's vice-regents, or vice-gerents, that's the word.
Yeah, I remember because I didn't know what that word meant, and my brain wanted to read it as vice-regents.
Right, yeah. But they came into Arda to rule Arda on behalf of Iluvatar, and the physical world, the finite bound world is their domain.
That's right.
So when Gandalf says he passes out of thought and time, that means he is going beyond the physical world. He's going beyond time. And so he is outside of the Valar's domain at that point.
He's not only outside of Arda, he's outside of Ea.
He's outside. Yes, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. He's outside of creation. He's outside of the universe. Yeah.
And thank you for explaining that, because I'm realizing anybody picking up just now, maybe who didn't listen to first season, the difference between Arda. Well, Arda is the earth itself. It's the created world, but we're talking about the spherical global world. Well, it's spherical now. It wasn't at the beginning.
Right, yeah.
Whereas Ea is the entire created universe.
Right.
In this case, Gandalf would have left even that because he left time.
Yeah, outside of the universe to the timeless halls where Iluvatar reigns. And so that's why he was beyond the reach of the Valar at that point. So it could only be Eru who sends him back.
That's right.
And of course, it could only be Eru who could do what he did.
That's right. And that's intimated actually by something that you'll notice if you read the letter. I tried to make this clear when I read it, that authority is with a capital A, but that's important.
Yeah.
The fact that he uses capital A to talk about authority and then little g when he talks about not by the gods whose business is only with this embodied world.
Right.
We know who he's talking about at that point. He's talking about the authority, the only authority. Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. And that's really significant because it was the Valar who sent the Astari in the first place. The Astari were Maiar, who were in Arda. They were part of this world, and they were sent by the Valar to Middle-earth. Gandalf goes out and is sent right back in by Iluvatar.
Yeah.
This is very significant. This is a true death, and this is a true resurrection.
Yeah, true resurrection. This is more than just a...
This is not just rehoused like elves, yeah.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that tonight because that's actually one of the questions in the bag, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yeah. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
But despite that, this new Gandalf 2.0 is still in a body. This is still an incarnate form. This is not just raiment. This is an actual body. And Tolkien says that if it is cheating to treat death as making no difference, embodiment must not be ignored. Gandalf may be enhanced in power, that is, under the forms of this fable in sanctity, but if still embodied, he must still suffer care and anxiety and the needs of flesh, which would be eating and drinking and sleep and so on.
Yeah. Another letter should be mentioned here, by the way, number 181 to Michael Straight. Now, he's the editor of New Republic, who was writing a review of The Lord of the Rings, and he'd written in with some questions. We've quoted this letter before when we were talking about Tom Bombadil. This is the letter that has that wonderful line about there being no embodiment of the creator anywhere in this story or mythology, which flat out eliminates the Tom as Eru theory. But here we're looking at something later in the same paragraph, and it reiterates some of the things we just covered from 156. He says, the situation became so much the worse by the fall of Saruman that the good were obliged to greater effort and sacrifice. Thus Gandalf faced and suffered death and came back, or was sent back, as he says, with enhanced power.
There you go.
Yeah.
That was a fun sidebar. I really enjoyed that one.
Oh, man, chills. The resurrection of Gandalf is one of my favorite bits. Really is.
And it's amazing because you have to go completely outside of the text to find really anything on it. Gandalf says none of that stuff.
No.
He stops at, darkness took me and
naked I was sent back.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
It.
That's it.
Get nothing.
That's it. That's it. And I think it's just because all that stuff, Gandalf probably realizes that stuff is not for mortal ears.
No.
I feel like these are mysteries of the universe. These are mysteries of these are theological mysteries, and I think Gandalf doesn't think that Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli are maybe they're not ready for it. Maybe they just don't need to hear it. Maybe there's no time, and there's not even time to sum up like Inigo Montoya.
Let me explain. Let me sum up. Yeah. I think that's actually it too, because like Tolkien explained to Robert Murray,
You'd have to slow everything down.
Right. The narrative is urgent, as he said. It must not be held up for elaborate discussions involving that,
Right.
all of that stuff.
Because you can imagine Gimli hearing it all and just being like, wait, you're a what? You know, it's
What?
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, back to the text, but only for a very brief while, because we've got some more sidebars coming in a minute.
That's right.
But going back to the text, so Gandalf is now stuck naked, literally naked. This isn't disembodied or anything. He's just, he's a naked
unclothed.
dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. As per Tolkien's letter. And there he is on top of the mountain. Now, at first, this seems like a problem. What's Iluvatar thinking, sending you back, but indisposed and in a rather inconvenient location?
I know. I mean, come on. The top of the mountain. This is not helpful. I'm freezing to death. You put me in a new body. Thank you very much. It can die of frostbite and hypothermia.
Right. And I've lost all kinds of weight.
Might be back really soon.
Right.
Yeah. Can we get 3.0 because 2.0 is going to die?
Because that didn't work out so well.
Right.
But actually it ends up working out because Gwaihir shows up. And that is, maybe a bit of spabimmy.
That's a very good thing. I mean, who else is going to show up there? Gwaihir's about the only other one who couldn't get there. So we're really glad he did. Let's look at the description of his waiting first, though. This idea that days seemed as long as an age.
Yeah, that is amazing. Is it just that he's lying there with nothing to do? He's in pain. He's bewildered because he's just been sent back from beyond the universe. You know, I don't know. What do you think that is?
No, well, there's nothing else for him to engage with, right? I mean, but I think this comes back to something he'd said in the last episode where he talks about not being able to see the things that are close up as well, but being able to see the things that are far away. This is other senses that are reaching out farther away, right? He's hearing the gathered rumor of all the lands. He's hearing all these things from far away, the groan of overburdened stone even, you know? So it's like he's able to hear things that he could not normally hear. Yeah.
Now I'm imagining that like his brain is just working really fast and he's just taking in all this information and again, sort of seeing the chessboard from high up. And so that's why his thought process is moving so fast that the day feels like forever.
It's like when you hear about somebody talking about, usually it's like a quarterback or maybe a safety in the game of football, talking about how the game slows down for them and they're able to make adjustments on the fly at really rapid speed. And it is pretty stunning. And they talk about that. And it takes 2 or 3 years at like the quarterback position for the game to slow down. I think that's what's happening here, right? I mean, the world is slowing down for Gandalf because he is so overpowered now. He's truly OP.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So then he's picked up by Gwaihir and he has this dialogue with Gwaihir. I love this observation by Gwaihir that Gandalf he's literally light.
Yeah.
This idea that the sun figuratively shines through him.
Yeah. It's like he's hollow.
Right. Exactly. He's like not transparent because it's not that kind of light.
No.
He's just like this thin,
he's a wafer thin.
There you go.
It's only
wafer thin. That's what I'm looking for.
That is exactly what you're looking for.
And I love the little bit about, hey, if I was going to let you go, you would just float upon the wind. Like, well, don't let me go.
Can we not try that experiment, please?
Can you just take me to Lothlorien? And Gwaihir's like, no, bro, it's totally cool. I got you.
That's exactly where we're going, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's where we're going. Galadriel sent me, and I'm here to look for you and bring you to her. By the way, she's got some clothes for you.
Which is a good thing. I don't want to really be naked if Galadriel's there. Celeborn won't approve.
No, certainly not.
No, he won't. So, this discussion of sacrifice that we've been talking about brings up some similarities between, a few people we're going to talk about here. The first one, Gandalf and Odin. So we thought we might as well jam in yet another sidebar. This one's going to be a lot briefer, though.
Why not? And we've touched on this before a little bit, but there are a lot of things that Gandalf has in common with Odin. Yeah. And thanks to our research assistant, Marilyn R. Pekila, we've actually got a list of some of these that we hadn't noticed before.
That's right.
So the first one is their appearance. They both appear as old men dressed in gray cloaks and brimmed hats.
Yeah.
And they both carry staffs.
Right.
They both have a hidden divine nature. And they both are wanderers. They both offer wisdom and so forth. And we actually see Odin referred to as the wanderer, just as Gandalf is Mithrandir, the gray pilgrim.
The gray wanderer. And then, of course, they both have a connection to birds. Odin's ravens bring him news, and the eagles bring Gandalf news, so very similar there. They both have gray horses with legendary origins, both of which are very fast and come when summoned. Though I do have to say I'm very grateful that Shadowfax only has 4 legs versus Sleipnir's 8.
I mean, I've read about Sleipnir before, the 8-legged horse, and the idea just creeps me out so much. I just can't imagine an 8-legged horse. Talk about Lovecraftian, man.
And then, of course, both end up changed after sacrificing themselves, right? I mean, Odin hanging from that big tree, the one I want to mention that I can't remember the name of for a moment.
Yggdrasil.
The Earth. That's the one, Yggdrasil. I don't know why I drew a blank on that. But yeah, so, they both sacrifice themselves. But, let's be clear. Odin sacrificing himself to himself is really different from Gandalf sacrificing himself for others.
It is. Yeah. That's true.
But both were changed as a result. So there's that.
Well, and then also, didn't Odin sacrifice his eye for wisdom or something like that?
Yeah, that's true.
And so we get Gandalf coming back with extra power and I think extra wisdom after his sacrifice.
Right.
So that's pretty cool. Now, of course, there are some big differences as well, like the nature of their sacrifice, like you said.
Yeah.
But also Gandalf's trying to make sure that a ring gets destroyed, while Odin's known for giving out rings.
He's rather the Lord of the Rings, one might say.
Now, of course, this is Norse mythology, so these are arm rings, and Odin isn't exactly a man of his word.
No, that's true.
I haven't seen Gandalf do any shape-shifting recently either.
No, that's a good point.
Well, I've got another here while we're talking about references to classical mythology. So I want to pivot now from Gandalf and Odin to Gandalf and Zeus. I feel like I have to bring in this bit from Hammond and Skull, which I had not thought of before. I never imagined a connection between Gandalf and Zeus before, but Hammond and Skull point out that the account of Gandalf's fight with the Balrog actually is very similar to the battle of Zeus and Typhoeus in Hesiod's Theogony. And I'm going to read a bit from that now.
Good, because I'm not familiar with it.
Zeus raised up his strength, seizing his arms. Lightning, the blazing bolt, and thunder leaped down from Olympus, struck, and burned the dreadful monster's ghastly heads. He lashed him with a whip and mastered him, and threw him down, all maimed, and great earth groaned. A flame leaped from the lightning-blasted lord when he was struck on the jagged mountainside. Great earth was widely scorched by the awful blast.
That is interesting. I had not noticed that, but then I'm not familiar with that battle, so.
I haven't read Hesiod since undergrad, I think. But yeah, I mean, it's like the lightning and the thunder and, being struck down on the mountainside. I mean, there's a lot here.
There is a lot, isn't there?
That is highly evocative of Hesiod.
There really is. And then there's one more. As we've talked about before, one of the things that makes Tolkien's work so appealing across differing worldviews is this exact sort of thing that I'm going to talk about here. One can see the similarities with a pagan god, whether we're talking about Odin or Zeus, but we can also see similarities with the Christian Jesus, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, Gandalf is basically a divine being, angelic being, but, still same ballpark.
Same concept, right?
Yeah, exactly. And he's actually incarnated in flesh that still eats and sleeps and is capable of being killed.
Right.
Gandalf has a mission to deliver the world from a great evil.
That he does, and clearly the willingness to lay down his life for others. He even has this resurrection in a more glorious form. And I thought this was interesting. Like the 3 followers of Jesus who walked with him on the road to Emmaus after the resurrection, Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli didn't immediately recognize him.
Oh, wow.
Now, that's a little bit of a deep cut, but I really like that. I thought it brought more attention to this similarity, yeah.
That is really cool. I didn't know that one because that's not a story I'm familiar with. But yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. There are these similarities to Christianity as well, and I think you're right. I think that is one of the things that makes Tolkien resonate so much with so many different people. It doesn't really matter what your worldview is, what your background is.
Right.
So many people find something in Tolkien that resonates with them.
That's absolutely right.
And again, we've talked about the fact that none of this is allegorical. This is just kind of Tolkien pulling from different stories that he's inspired by.
That's right. Gandalf is not Odin and he's not Jesus.
Right, exactly. And just to sort of reinforce that, I want to point out something else that Tolkien says in letter number 156. After talking about Gandalf being sent back with this enhanced power we were talking about a little while ago, Tolkien says, Though one may be in this reminded of the Gospels, it is not really the same thing at all. The incarnation of God is an infinitely greater thing than anything I would dare to write.
Hmm.
Here I am only concerned with death as part of the nature, physical and spiritual, of man, and with hope without guarantees.
That really sounds like Tolkien. In fact, that reminds me a little bit of something he wrote in On Fairy Stories. He's like, I don't really want to even try to write this comparison. You know, I don't want to really try to draw an analogy between what I write and, you know, this ultimate story. And he's really hesitant to even touch on it.
I think deep down he would have seen himself as being sacrilegious if he were intentionally trying to do that.
Right. He knows better. Like, this is not my realm. I can't do this. I'm not qualified. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Though lack of qualification hasn't exactly stopped us from doing this entire thing, 201 episodes.
I'm glad you said it because I was thinking it.
Yeah, I knew what you were thinking. So let's go get back to the text because, my goodness, we've been away from it for a while, diving into all of this extra stuff. But it's been so much fun.
It has.
And I'm going to have you pick up literally where I left off, talking about Gandalf coming to Caras Galadhon.
All right. Thus it was that I came to Caras Galadhon and found you but lately gone. I tarried there in the ageless time of that land, where days bring healing, not decay. Healing I found, and I was clothed in white. Counsel I gave, and counsel took. Thence by strange roads I came, and messages I bring to some of you. To Aragorn I was bidden to say this. Where now are the Dunedain, Elisar, Elisar? Why do thy kinsfolk wander afar? Near is the hour when the lost should come forth, and the grey company ride from the north. But dark is the path appointed for thee. The dead watch the road that leads to the sea. To Legolas she sent this word. Legolas Greenleaf, long under tree, in joy thou hast lived. Beware of the sea. If thou hearest the cry of the gull on the shore, thy heart shall then rest in the forest no more. Gandalf fell silent and shut his eyes.
Wow. I wish we could read more, but again, we have to skip some bits. So he arrives at Caras Galadhon on February 17th, and I think this is as good a time as any to look at the scheme here, right?
I think so.
He does a great job laying out the timeline. January 15th, Gandalf falls in the abyss with the Balrog. January 16th, wrestles with the Balrog and pursues it through the deeps for many days. And by many days, Tolkien means a week, because then he says January 23rd, pursues Balrog to pinnacle of Zerach-Zigil, and there wrestles with him for 3 days.
Right. And then 3 days later, on January 26th, he writes, Gandalf casts down the Balrog and falls into a long trance.
Mm-hmm.
Then February 17th, Gwaihir finds Gandalf and takes him to Lorien. So there's, 30 days in every month, right? So we're looking at 21 days, 3 weeks, basically.
Yeah, 3 full weeks.
He's gone. And then February 20th, Gandalf leaves Lorien and flies south, borne by Gwaihir.
Yeah, quite a timeline. I mean, when you realize that he was chasing the Balrog for a week to get to the top of the mountain and then fighting with him for 3 days.
It's a long fight.
And then he's gone from the earth for 3 weeks, essentially.
Right.
And how much of that time is him lying naked after being sent back? I don't know. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, we just don't know.
Mm-hmm. So Galadriel clothes him in white. Just clothe him in anything, dang it. Just please put clothes on this guy.
Put some clothes on this guy.
Seriously. He gave and received counsel. And then he passes on the messages. To Aragorn, call the Grey Company, the remaining Dunedain, and seek the paths of the dead.
Right. And then Legolas gets this warning about the sea. It's like, look, you've loved the forest all your life, but the sea is going to call you. And when it does, beware.
Yeah.
And of course, Gimli is just like on pins and needles right now. He's like, what about me? What about me?
Come on. Did I get a message, please?
Notice Gandalf says, I bring messages to some of you.
Yeah, you're right. That's right.
And so Gimli's like, oh, well, I guess that's not me, you know?
Apparently not.
Right. But actually, she does give a message to Gimli. I just didn't read it. She says, Lockbearer, my thoughts are with you. Just use your axe on the right trees.
Which I love. I absolutely love that. I also love looking at their reactions. Legolas, dark are her words, and he's really just not very happy. Would you ever speak openly to you of your death? I mean, Legolas is really kind of bummed by what Galadriel says to him. But Gimli, He's literally dancing around. He is
Well, yeah.
bouncing on cloud nine. He is so happy.
Of course he is, because
He's
he got...
capering.
Well, of course he is, because he got the, hey, I'm thinking about you.
Yeah, that's true.
Wanted to let you know I'm thinking about you. Whereas Legolas got, stay away from the sea. Horrible things are going to happen.
That's a good point. Yeah.
But
Oh, man.
I think the reactions are perfectly appropriate.
That's true. I do think they are.
But yeah, you're right. Gimli is kind of like, he's all raring to go now. This has kind of energized him because, I mean, yeah, it's like, Gimli's like, all right, let me go find something to cut, right?
Yeah.
I'm not going to cut a tree. I'm going to go find a head to cut.
Right. I can't put a dent in Gandalf's hat because it's Gandalf, not Saruman, but
there's that.
Let's go find something that we can cut. Yeah.
Right.
I did note, by the way, that his head is now sacred. I thought that was an interesting observation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting that Gimli uses that word.
I know.
Yeah.
He may not be using it. You keep on using that word. I do not think you know what it means, but maybe. So
maybe. But then Gandalf says, all right, well, it's time to get moving. We've got need of haste. So let's get going, guys.
That's right. There is need of haste. I love that line. And that's where I'm going to go ahead and pick up. He wrapped himself again in his old tattered cloak and led the way. Following him, they descended quickly from the high shelf and made their way back through the forest down the bank of the Entwash. They spoke no more words until they stood again upon the grass beyond the eaves of Fangorn. There was no sign of their horses to be seen. "They have not returned," said Legolas. "It will be a weary walk." "I shall not walk. Time presses," said Gandalf. Then lifting up his head, he gave a long whistle. So clear and piercing was the note that the others stood amazed to hear such a sound come from those old bearded lips. 3 times he whistled, and then faint and far off, it seemed to them that they heard the whinny of a horse borne up from the plains upon the eastern wind. They waited, wondering. Before long there came the sound of hoofs. At first, hardly more than a tremor of the ground, perceptible only to Aragorn as he lay upon the grass, then growing steadily louder and clearer to a quick beat. "There's more than one horse coming," said Aragorn. "Certainly," said Gandalf. "We are too great a burden for one." "There are 3, said Legolas, gazing out over the plain. "See how they run. There is Hasifel, and there is my friend Arad beside him. But there is another that strides ahead, a very great horse I have not seen his like before." "Nor will you again," said Gandalf. "That is Shadowfax. He is the chief of the Meras, Lords of Horses." And there's our mid-sentence break.
And you're stopped at a comma. I love it.
I stopped at a comma because really I don't need to get to the rest of that right now, do we?
No, we don't.
He is the chief of the Meras. They are the Lords of Horses. Absolutely.
Indeed. All right. Well, let's go back to the beginning of that passage. And I actually love the fact that the first thing Gandalf does is he wraps himself again in his old cloak. He wants to hide the fact that he's come back with all this power, right? He wants to
Absolutely.
He wants to cloak himself again as a wanderer.
Mm-hmm. That's
it's
right.
kind of a stealth move.
It is, right.
But the group heads back down the Entwash following Gandalf. They reach the eaves, and there's no horses that they can see. But Gandalf's like, no, I'm not walking. We're good.
No, I love that.
Who needs Uber? Because he can whistle 3 times.
That's pretty cool. He doesn't even need a phone with an app and all of that. No credit card. Yeah.
Nope.
And after he whistles, we get the whinny of a horse and the sound of hoofs nearing. Aragorn observes, of course, there's more than one horse coming, and Gandalf's kind of like, well, duh. It wouldn't do me much good to just bring one horse, right?
I feel like that's such like a corny old man joke. Like,
it really is.
We can't all ride on one.
That is sort of a dad joke, isn't it?
It is, totally. Did you notice Aragorn does the ranger thing again? He puts his ear to the ground?
Yeah, puts his ear to the ground.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So yeah, Gandalf makes his dad joke, and then Legolas now sees the horses. He sees 3. He sees Hasifel and Arad, which we remember from just the night before, wasn't it? That they ran off, right?
Yeah, you're right. The night before is when they ran away. It's true.
Yeah. But then he sees this 3rd.
Oh, boy.
A very great horse. And very great in a couple of different ways, isn't he?
He's Shadowfax, he says. This is the chief of the Miras. They are the Lords of Horses. And I didn't read that line, but he is the horse of the White Rider. He's my horse. And we go to battle together. And then I'm going to have you pick up. It is fantastic.
It is.
So now with Shadowfax's arrival,
Always nice when somebody refers to themselves in the third person.
Mm-hmm.
He is the horse of the White Rider.
That's right.
All right. As soon as Shadowfax saw Gandalf, he checked his pace and whinnied loudly. Then, trotting gently forward, he stooped his proud head and nuzzled his great nostrils against the old man's neck. Gandalf caressed him. "It is a long way from Rivendell, my friend," he said. "But you are wise and swift and come at need. Far let us ride now together, and part not in this world again." Soon the other horses came up, and stood quietly by, as if awaiting orders. "We go at once to Meduseld, the hall of your master Theoden," said Gandalf, addressing them gravely. They bowed their heads. "Time presses, so with your leave, my friends, we will ride. We beg you to use all the speed that you can. Hasufel shall bear Aragorn, and Arad Legolas. I will set Gimli before me, and by his leave Shadowfax shall bear us both. We will wait now only to drink a little." "Now I understand a part of last night's riddle," said Legolas as he sprang lightly upon Arad's back. "Whether they fled at first in fear or not, our horses met Shadowfax, their chieftain, and greeted him with joy. Did you know that he was at hand, Gandalf?" "Yes, I knew," said the wizard. "I bent my thought upon him, bidding him to make haste. For yesterday he was far away in the south of this land. Swiftly may he bear me back again."
I like that line, though, when he says, "We will wait now only to drink a little." I'm picturing him reaching into his robes and getting out a little flask. Some
For
shot
sure.
glasses.
Absolutely. Get some of that orc draft going, man.
Oh, no. So we get the arrival of Shadowfax. We get this beautiful description, right? The glistening coat, the flowing mane, and how the other horses are way behind him. He slows down when he sees Gandalf and trots up to him.
Mm-hmm.
And then he stoops and nuzzles. There's this really affectionate moment that we get where he just nuzzles against him and Gandalf caresses him. It's just this really sweet, affectionate love between Gandalf and Shadowfax here. I love it.
It absolutely is, yeah. And I'm not even, despite the fact that I am the Lord of the Mark, I'm not a person with a lot of experience with horses, but this is still a really beautiful moment. I can feel the love between, a horse and his rider. It's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And then Gandalf makes this kind of odd comment, right? He comments that it's a long way from Rivendell.
Yeah.
Which struck me as a little bit odd because I'm like, wait, he didn't have Shadowfax at Rivendell.
Right.
At least not that we saw. Well, we actually did talk about this back in episode 186, and we discovered at that time that it seems to be a holdover from an earlier plan of Tolkien's.
Mm-hmm.
According to Christopher Tolkien in The Treason of Isengard, Tolkien originally thought about having Gandalf take Shadowfax to Rivendell and basically just leave him there until he summoned him.
Right. It's like a parking garage for fancy horses.
Yeah, exactly.
And now I'm seeing the scene from Ferris Bueller's Day Off with a couple of household elves taking Shadowfax
out for a ride, yeah.
Trying to reverse the miles, afterwards.
Right, yeah. How do you reverse the miles on a horse?
I don't know, and I don't think I want to know.
It's probably not much easier than reversing them on a Ferrari.
No, probably true. Yeah, we also observed Christopher's point that it would have taken Shadowfax 10 to 14 days to travel the 500 to 600 miles from Rivendell, as well as Hammond and Skull's observation that, well, this is really a problem because it would mean that Shadowfax would have left Rivendell between February 9th and 13th. But if we go back a little bit in scheme, we see this is when Gandalf was, gone. He was in a trance.
Elsewhere.
He was elsewhere.
He was indisposed.
He was very indisposed. Either he was outside of thought and time, or he was naked at the top of a mountain wondering why the days seemed so long.
Right.
We don't really have a fix for this, which suggests that it's really just a holdover from an older version of the story that simply didn't get resolved.
Yep, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, going back to the text now, Gandalf speaks to Arad and Hasufel.
Mm-hmm.
I love this. He actually basically asks them for permission to ride them.
Yeah, and by his leave, we will put Gimli in front of me, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess it's because the horses are about to get a workout.
Yeah, they are.
The horses do seem to acknowledge his words.
Mm-hmm.
Legolas goes ahead and points out what everyone else has figured out by now, which is the riddle of the horses, right? Their seeming joy after running away.
Right. They get away, and then there's like, wait a minute, they don't sound unhappy. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And then, hey, did you know Shadowfax was around here? And Gandalf says, yeah, I totally paged him.
I paged him. I love it.
Bent my thought upon him, which is a very useful skill to have.
That is a useful skill, to bend your thought upon somebody and have them show up. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and finish up the chapter with our last reading for tonight.
All right.
It's been a long one, huh?
It really has, yeah. And we're not done yet. So
no, we are not. The mailbag has some stuff for us tonight, doesn't it?
Yep.
All right.
It does.
Gandalf spoke now to Shadowfax, and the horse set off at a good pace, yet not beyond the measure of the others. After a little while, he turned suddenly, and, choosing a place where the banks were lower, he waded the river and then led them away due south into a flat land, treeless and wide. The wind went like gray waves through the endless miles of grass. There was no sign of road or track, but Shadowfax did not stay or falter. "He is steering a straight course now for the halls of Theoden under the slopes of the White Mountains," said Gandalf. "It will be quicker so. The ground is firmer in the East Emnet, where the chief northward track lies, across the river, but Shadowfax knows the way through every fen and hollow." For many hours they rode on through the meads and riverlands. Often the grass was so high that it reached above the knees of the riders, and their steeds seemed to be swimming in a gray-green sea. They came upon many hidden pools and broad acres of sedge waving above wet and treacherous bogs, but Shadowfax found the way, and the other horses followed in his swath. Slowly the sun fell from the sky down into the west. Looking out over the great plain, far away the riders saw it for a moment like a red fire sinking into the grass. Low upon the edge of sight, shoulders of the mountains glinted red upon either side. A smoke seemed to rise up and darken the sun's disk to the hue of blood, as if it had kindled the grass as it passed down under the rim of earth. "There lies the Gap of Rohan," said Gandalf. "It is now almost due west of us. That way lies Isengard." "I see a great smoke," said Legolas. "What may that be?" "Battle and war," said Gandalf. "Ride on."
Oh, man.
Wow.
I can't wait to get to the next chapter.
I know. It's going to be so...
And the one after that.
I
Oh,
know.
man.
This book is amazing. Book 3, so many people come on North Wing and say book 1's their favorite. I think it's either book 3 or...
I do love book 3.
Maybe...
Book 5 is amazing too.
Yeah, that's the thing. Book 5 is probably the other one. It's got to be those two, 3 and 5.
Yeah. All right. Let's unpack this last bit of the chapter.
All right.
So Gandalf speaks to Shadowfax and Shadowfax sets off. Shadowfax is leading,
right,
but doesn't leave the other horses behind.
Which is nice of him.
Yeah, well, I mean, it doesn't really do them much good if Shadowfax just bolts
Shadowfax
off.
is rope-a-doping Hasafel and Arad, right?
Yeah. I mean, it wouldn't do much good if he just runs off and they have no idea where he's gone because they're like, which way is it to Edoras now?
Yeah, seriously. And how do I get through these fens?
Although Hasafel and Arad could probably figure out the way back home. But...
Well, yeah, that's true.
But they cross the river. They go due south into this flat, treeless grassland, which...
Right.
I assume that's going to allow them to travel faster, isn't it?
Presumably. Gandalf points that out, right? We're heading straight for Edoras. Shadowfax can easily lead the way. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we've got this very stunning landscape description.
I know. It's gorgeous, isn't it?
They're riding through the meads and riverlands. Now, I guess I probably ought to point out mead just means meadow there.
Oh, they're not riding through drink?
They're not riding through honey wine, no.
No.
They're riding to a place where they're drinking lots of meads, but they're not riding through the meads. They see the grass so high that it was at the knees of the riders. The knees of the riders
is that?
Who are on horses, right.
That's way up there. I kind of did a little bit of digging. It obviously depends on the size of the horse, right? But that's got to be at least 4 feet. That's
I think
very
so.
tall grass.
I think it must be, yeah.
Probably more than that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and we know it's very high because we get this description of the horses as though they're swimming in a gray-green sea.
Oh, that's a gorgeous description, isn't it?
It totally is. Yeah. And you get this image of them going through the grass.
Mm.
And then we see these hidden pools and the sedge and the bogs, but Shadowfax knows the way.
Yes, he does. So then we get the sunset, this gorgeous description, right? The red fire sinking into the grass. The grass looks like it's been kindled. Oh, what a gorgeous moment.
Yeah. And I can't help but contrast this scene and all this freedom and brightness and openness under the sun. There's just so much breathing room to this passage.
Yeah.
And contrast that with Gandalf's description of his fight with the Balrog, the language of that passage was so stifling and dark, and it's like these maze-like tunnels, these underground caverns. And I just can't help but thinking that we're really seeing Gandalf has symbolically emerged from a dark cave into the light of day.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And I think this is really beautiful that this chapter ends with this passage. Yeah.
I like that. That's a very good catch. I hadn't noticed that, but you're right. There is definitely a metaphor there, I think. Yeah.
I think so. Yeah. It's like he's back out in the sun. He's free again.
Yes, he is.
It's pretty amazing.
Well, Gandalf points out that they're looking at the Gap of Rohan.
Mm-hmm.
So now we have a little bit of their geography here, right?
Yeah. And Legolas sees this great smoke, which Gandalf says is battle and war. I love that.
Battle and war!
Yeah.
Yeah. This is really an echo, though, of an older version of the story, isn't it? Here it's March 1st, and Entmoot is still happening. So this is not the Ents' attack on Isengard. We know that.
Right.
But it's also not the first battle of the Fords of Isen, which took place on February 25th, a week ago.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Nor is it the second battle, which doesn't start until tomorrow night, March 2nd. But in a previous timeline, or a previous version of the timeline, Tolkien did have the four riding to Edoras on the same day as that second battle. And in The War of the Ring, Christopher Tolkien explains, it seems impossible to avoid the conclusion that the end of the chapter escaped revision when the date of the second battle of the Fords of Isen was changed.
That's kind of a bummer.
I know.
But it still works. I still like it.
It does work. Yeah. I just imagine it as sort of like the pre-battle.
Yeah. Or maybe it's just, maybe parts of it are still smoking from the first battle. I don't know.
Maybe. That's a pretty intense battle if that's the case.
That's true. Smoking 7 days later.
Seriously. Well, whatever the case, though, if that way lies Isengard, I'm going this way because I think that's where Barlaman's bag is.
Yes.
And after that, the talk still continues all night long at the Prancing Pony.
Of course it does, because our awesome listener community keeps the conversation going in all of our social media spaces.
Mm-hmm.
At our common room on Facebook, you'll find comments, questions, corrections, and more on every episode, as well as updates from us throughout the week. Just look for the Prancing Pony Podcast on Facebook.
And be sure to follow the page and join the group that we've recently created. The page is a great way for us to keep you up to date on the latest happenings regarding the podcast, like our digital moot that we talked about earlier. And we will be really utilizing that to let folks know about that.
Yeah.
But the group gives you a great chance to discuss Tolkien with your fellow listeners and sometimes with us.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a really fun place to hang out.
It is.
And of course, we also have some really good conversations going on over on Reddit. You can find us there at r/prancingponypod. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Instagram, both with the handle @prancingponypod. And finally, if you're enjoying the show, please share us and please consider giving us a review on Apple Podcasts.
Now, if you want exclusive content like postscripts, full bonus episodes, live Discord events with Shawn and me, and episodes without digital ads, then check out patreon.com/prancingponypod, where you can support the show by joining the Fellowship of the Podcast. Now, let's see what messages Barlaman has brought us. Shawn?
Oh, we've got some meaty ones tonight, Alan.
Yeah.
We're going to start with one from Paul Day in Bristol in the UK, who asks, Gandalf dies and comes back as Gandalf 2.0.
Mm-hmm.
But is that much different to elves being reborn, subject to terms and conditions? Apart from the speed of the rebirth, which in Gandalf's case has been supercharged.
So we're looking at the difference between Gandalf's being returned and the elves being rehoused.
Right.
Which should be interesting. Before we start, I want to give a major hat tip to research assistant Tanya Plashkova for pulling together some extensive quotes along with analysis to help us pull this answer together. First off, we should note that as one of the Ainur, Aloran would have had the ability to self-incarnate, that is, to appear in bodily form, but not need that body to live in Arda. That's just a power that was native to the Ainur.
Right, like the raiment.
The
basically.
raiment, right. That's probably a better way to put it, is the raiment, right? He could put on raiment. But when he accepted the mission for this, he had to actually become truly incarnate.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, I can kind of see Manwë now. Your mission, Gandalf, should you choose to accept it. Should you or any of the Astari be caught or killed, the Valar will disavow any knowledge of your actions. This tape will self-destruct in 5 seconds.
I'm kind of imagining like in the spy movie where like Gandalf, calls the number that it's like an answering machine for a dry cleaners, but it's really the headquarters.
That's right. What's an answering machine?
Oh, well, okay, fine. A voicemail or something.
Right, of course.
But yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And that standard issue body was, as we've noted several times, capable of being killed and of
Hmm.
experiencing hunger and pain and so on.
Right,
All the things that an incarnate child of Iluvatar, like an elf or a man, could experience.
right.
But there is one difference that we see with the Astari. In Otrapada, that's of the Rings of Power in the Third Age, we read that in the likeness of men they appeared, old but vigorous, and they changed little with the years, and aged but slowly, though great cares lay on them.
Hmm.
But the bodies of men aged quickly. So what gives here? Well,
Yeah,
keep in mind that men's spirits were destined to leave Arda, while the Ainur were all bound to the world forever once they came down from the timeless halls.
right.
So the aging process we see with one of these incarnate Maiar looks a lot more like that of the elves. It's very slow, it's
Hmm.
nearly imperceptible, and that's all because they were bound to Arda.
That might explain why the Astari were often mistaken for elves by men.
Could be.
We see that a couple of times in the text.
Mm-hmm.
Earlier, we talked about how Gandalf died a true death in that he left the circles of the world altogether, not a pit stop at Mandos like the elves. So, in that way, because he left Arda, he left Ea, his death was very much like that of a man.
Mm-hmm.
But his return seems honestly far more elvish in nature, though I guess to be
Right.
fair, any return would be, since men
Well,
don't
that's
come
true.
back.
Yeah, no, that's
right?
true.
I mean, bearing the exception that proves the rule.
True.
Gandalf is put back into a body and returns after a period of rest and healing. That's very elvish. Now, granted, the rest and healing in this case come after his return in Lorien, not before, but
Right.
that simply serves to confirm that he was returned to life by Eru himself. Now, I know, and it's, yeah.
Hunt, get back in there.
Exactly. Yeah. Recall that the Valar have the power and authority to rebuild new bodies for the Fëanor of Elves. There's that great passage about Eru basically saying, "What do you mean you can't do it? I've given you the power. Just do it."
Right. Right.
But being returned to his own original body, that's something that only Eru himself could have done.
Well, and not to mention the serious power enhancement that he gives him. That's something that only Eru could have done.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you're right. I think there's a way in which it's like the death of men, but very much so like the return of elves. And just like the return of elves, Gandalf keeps his memories and he keeps his personality. I mean,
that's right.
Okay, slightly changed, I guess.
Well, yeah, a little bit.
But he is basically the same person, and that shows us that it is the same Gandalf, the same self that has returned.
Yeah.
So, no, I guess the short answer is that Gandalf's resurrection isn't that different from the rehousing of elves. There are a lot of similarities in place.
But there's some differences, right?
Exactly. And those differences point to the intervention of Iluvatar and the fact that Gandalf is an instrument in Iluvatar's plan at this point, and that he comes back with juice that the Valar just were not capable of. And that is very different from elves.
Very different. That's right.
Well, that was a fun one. Thank you, Paul.
That was.
Alan, time for one more?
I don't know if we actually have time for one more, but we're going to do it anyway.
All right, let's do it.
This is a long question that's going to necessarily involve some similarly lengthy discussion. Kirsten E. in Pennsylvania asks, something that has repeatedly confounded me is a seeming dichotomy in Tolkien's work, namely his recurring themes of hope, eucatastrophe, and the consolation of the happy ending, over and against the vein of sadness that runs through so much of his writings. In trying to reconcile these contrasting concepts of heartbreak and joy, I noticed that the sadness tends to accompany stories about the elves, who of course are immortal. It occurred to me, Kirsten says, that being bound to Arda necessarily brings grief, deathlessness notwithstanding, because Arda is marred, full of memories of loss and sin. Men, on the other hand, have been granted the gift of death, a gift the later Númenóreans resisted because, among other reasons, they didn't understand it. Living forever in a world so stained with grief would have been an ever-growing burden, whereas release from Arda meant relief from sadness, and a chance for, I can only speculate, joy unalloyed, which of course reflects the Christian story, that once Adam and Eve's sin brought about the fall, death came into the world, not so much as a punishment, Kirsten says, but as an opportunity to be released from the now fallen creation, and through Christ, the eucatastrophe, experience the joyous union with God that originally existed in Eden. The sadness then seems to be inextricable from immortality, whereas men and hobbits have the chance for true happiness. What do you think? Is this sadness peculiar to the elves, and is it Tolkien's belief in a release from the world's woe that prompted him to paint his world in this way.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, man.
There are some really deep thoughts there, Kirsten. Thank you very much. And also, I just happen to love the way she writes. I just have to say it. It's really, she's got a nice way with words here. I like the way she's expressing these ideas. You know, the first thing that comes to my mind is this idea of Tolkien as a man of antitheses. Remember, you know, there's the On Fairy stories and the Beowulf stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's, I guess, a little bit what's going on here, but really not so much, because what Kirsten's talking about is really the difference between elves and men. And I think we can dig into that a little bit.
I think so.
I've got some things to say about the sadness that's peculiar to elves, like Kirsten suggests. I think she's absolutely right about that. But Alan, why don't you start on some of the stuff with men, especially since you're a little bit more familiar with Tolkien's theological perspective?
That's fair. I mean, I'll do what I can. To be honest, though, I had to bring in a little help from research assistant Thomas Carrot, who helped me understand some of this from Tolkien's own Catholic perspective, given that my background is as a Protestant.
Okay, that's fair.
First, though, I should clarify what may or may not be an assumption in the question. Kirsten says of the Christian story that after the fall, death came into the world not so much as a punishment, but as an opportunity to be released from the now fallen creation. Thomas points out that for Catholics, death is, to an extent at least, a punishment, not merely a way for people to be released from a fallen creation. The fall and the introduction of death was a victory for Satan, at least until God used death catastrophically to bring about the redemption of men through the death and resurrection of Christ. But that didn't happen until the incarnation of Christ, so death couldn't be a gift until after that point.
Right, okay.
I know we're kind of getting into the fine points of theology, but I think we have to answer the question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, since Middle-earth is in theory our own world before the incarnation, the view of death as a gift seems to be kind of at odds with Catholic orthodoxy. Thomas was able to point that out. But from the Christian perspective, death was a victory of Satan that God would later turn into a gift. But in Arda, it's the other way around. It's a gift of Eru that would later be perverted by Morgoth, which just really flips it on its head. I thought that was
it does. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, that changes things a little bit. But to the question of whether Arda's sadness is related to its fallen state and its mortality, the serial longevity of elves, compared with the actual immortality of men. And that's an interesting way to view it, because let's remember that, right?
Right. The elves are not really immortal, are they? Right.
They're serially longeval. Men are actually immortal. It's just that their Hroar aren't.
Right.
They go where the elves don't know.
They're immortal beyond the circles of the world. Right.
That's right.
Right.
That's absolutely right. So it's really challenging there. But if we look at the mortality of elves compared with the actual immortality of men, just not in Arda, the answer about sadness seems to be a solid yes. But it is worth keeping in mind that even for men in Arda, they are still fighting the long defeat, as Galadriel might say. Because for them, the hope isn't just leaving Arda, or to draw the Christian theology perspective analogy, the hope isn't just salvation. It's the coming of an entirely new creation, one in which everything will be perfect and not fallen. So the sadness that's inherent to Arda isn't merely because it's fallen and marred, but also because it's going to pass away in the second music. That sadness would have impacted men significantly, but it is fair to say, I think, that elves felt it more because they didn't even know what their place would be in Arda Remade. And that is big. I think that's why we see so much more of it with the elves. But still, men would feel that sadness because, of course, this planet is fallen. It's going to have to pass away. It's going to have to be destroyed. And the hope is not just leaving it, but coming into a new creation altogether. So that's kind of what I've got there. You've got some things to say on the elves, though. So I'm going to hand this over to you.
Yeah, I think that's all really interesting. I certainly wasn't thinking of it from the perspective of elves and their place in Arda Remade, but I think you get some really interesting ideas there. You know, I think I kind of come at this from the perspective of just elves' existence being in this Arda, being stuck in Arda Marred. And I think that Kirsten really nailed it when she said that being bound to Arda necessarily brings grief because Arda is marred, full of memories of loss and sin.
Yeah.
I do feel like that's something that Tolkien expresses in his letters.
Yeah.
I think the elves are doomed to endure a deathless existence in the world. And it's in not just the world, but it's in a world where everything eventually dies or fades or changes.
That's right.
I mean, it's hard for us to comprehend the world the way an elf sees it, because we have a limited time on Earth. We recognize that change is a part of life, and we know that we're only here for a short time and then we leave.
Yeah.
Tolkien does something really wonderful with the elves, which is to give us a mirror to look into and contemplate what immortality on Earth would really entail. So, I mean, think of it this way. If you've ever lost, like, maybe you've lost a friend or a family member or even a pet.
Yeah.
If you've ever experienced this loss and this grief, you know what it feels like to outlive someone that you loved and to have to go on living without them. Now, as humans, we have to do this a few times in our lives. And of course, the longer we live, the more we have to do it.
Yeah.
Elves live so long that they have to do it all the time.
Wow. Wow, that is heavy, but you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, not just the people that they love, but the places and the things they love. They have to watch the world and everything around them fade and wither and die.
Yeah.
And to me, that's what I think of as the reason for their sadness. And Tolkien actually has this really awesome phrase. He refers to it as their faineant melancholy that the elves have.
I love that phrase. Yeah.
And this is something that Tolkien talks about in his letters. So I'm going to start with letter number 131. So everybody playing the drinking game, take a drink.
Yeah.
He refers to the griefs and burdens of deathlessness in time and change. He actually talks about the burdens of deathlessness. And that's something that, most people who just think about it sort of superficially, like, oh, it'd be great to live forever. No, man, this would be grief and burden.
Yeah,
Tolkien is telling us this.
Huge.
In letter number 154 to Naomi Mitchison, Tolkien says that the elves were overburdened with sadness and nostalgic regret.
Yeah.
In 245 to Rona Bear, Tolkien says that the elves actually envied men's deaths because they believed that it meant liberation from the circles of the world. They're stuck in this place and they would love the chance to leave it because it is so sad to watch everything fade and die.
Can we get out of here, please? Yeah.
Can we just get off this rock?
Right.
And they can't.
No.
And then in letter number 181 to Michael Straight, he says it better than anywhere else, I think. And this is going to be kind of a long reading, but bear with me. When killed by the injury or destruction of their incarnate form, they do not escape from time, but remain in the world, either discarnate or being reborn. This becomes a great burden as the ages lengthen, especially in a world in which there is malice and destruction. I have left out the mythological form which malice or the fall of the angels takes in this fable. Of course, that's the stuff told in the music of the Ainur of Melkor.
Right, right.
Tolkien says mere change as such is not represented as evil. It is the unfolding of the story, and to refuse this is of course against the design of God.
Right.
But the elvish weakness is in these terms naturally to regret the past, and to become unwilling to face change, as if a man were to hate a very long book still going on, and wish to settle down in a favorite chapter.
Oh, I love that quote.
And that's where he goes on to talk about the temptation of the rings to halt time and all that stuff. But yeah, I think that's all very telling. I think Tolkien's idea is that the elves are sad because they are bound to this world, and they're just forced to watch the whole marred production play out until the very end.
An end that they don't even know what their role's going to be.
Exactly. And so I think that's where your insight, coming at it from the perspective of Art of Remade, I think that adds a really nice companion to that, which is that, like, we're going to suffer, and we have no idea if we're going to get to take part in this new paradise that's going to be created.
Wow. And that is heavy.
That's rough.
Yeah.
But that was a fantastic question, Kirsten. Thank you so much.
It really was. Yeah.
Thank you for sending it in. We had, I don't know if fun is the right word because it's a heavy topic, but it was heavy topic. It was great to dive into.
Boy, it sure was. But Shawn, please don't pick two like this for the same episode again.
All right. I promise.
All right.
Try not to.
Well, folks, that does wrap it up for another episode of the Prancing Pony Podcast. But please be sure to join us again next week when we celebrate Tolkien Reading Day with this year's fitting topic of hope and courage.
Yeah, we've got lots of great readings on tap, to be sure. And as always, folks, we want to take a moment to thank some truly important people, our patrons at the Kierdance Contribution tier. They are DeMay in Alaska, James in Virginia, Tamsin in Minnesota, Chad in Texas, Lance in New Jersey, Paul in Colorado, Jerry in Texas, Bruce in California, Mario in Utah, Seth in Texas, Ella in California, Joseph in Texas, Kathy from North Carolina, Lori from Washington, Josh in Oklahoma, Carlos in California, Brian from the UK, Cameron in Nevada, Ned from Connecticut, and Thad from Georgia. Thank you all so much for your support. That list is getting so long.
Seriously, we're about to have to split that up. You take half, I take half. I mean, it's grown so much. We're so grateful. Now, we also want to thank the team that helps make this show better. That includes our research assistants, Marilyn R. Pakila, Tanya Plashkova, and Thomas Karan, along with our barlowman, Becca Davis, producer Jordan Rennells, social media manager Casey Hilsey, event and Patreon community coordinator Katie McKenna, and website guru Phil Dean.
This show truly would not be what it is without our supporters and our teammates. So thanks to all of you.
Yes.
Now be sure you don't miss any episodes of the Prancing Pony Podcast. Subscribe to the show through Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app.
And one last thing as always, don't forget to send your thoughts, comments, and most of all, the message Galadriel sent to you to barlowman@theprancingponypodcast.com.
Celeborn, please do not write in.
No, please don't.
Barlowman's a lot more reliable these days, but we get a lot of mail, so we'll get to you as soon as we can. And your question or comment may be featured on a future episode.
Now, as always, this has been far too short a time, though it's still been a long one, to spend among such excellent and admirable listeners. But until next time.
Farewell, friends.